Alright guys, tonight we're going to talk about serving technique. This should be another pretty quick video. When we're talking about serving technique, this isn't really strategy on what we're trying to accomplish when we're serving the ball. That'll be next. But serving technique, or what are the consistent things that we need to see to make a serve successful? And that has nothing to do with what's on the other side of the court, just performing the things consistently. So what we're going to look at first is probably the 5 most important things is what is an ideal serve? What's it look like? Things along those lines. And the second thing would be what's consistent in all of our serves? What's the same thing that's happening regardless of the different types of serves that we're doing to make sure that we're consistent as possible? What's the order of operation? How do we decide what we're trying to serve, where we're trying to serve, things like that. One hand versus a two-hand toss, and common mistakes and challenges. And those are the things I think you guys need to be aware of. So let's start right away with ideal serve. You guys all know what I'm looking for here. Flat and clean, low and fast. Not in the passer zone. And we talk about the serves always wanting to be deep. That's because that's the hardest motion to make is deep. What you really want to accomplish, and you're going to see this in serving technique, is we don't want to pass the ball from about anywhere between 5 feet off the back line to 10 feet there or far in. So we want to try to avoid that 10 feet of from 5 feet to 15 feet off the back line. That's really where the passer's platform is the most avidly successful. So we want to go deeper than that or shorter than that. And the goal there is to make sure that they're moving vertically, and that's probably the toughest move for most passers to make. That's what we talk about passers take 2 steps. I want a passer to move both horizontally and vertically. So towards or away from the net and left to right all at the same time, because that requires really good control over your platform. So that's what an ideal serve looks like. Order of operation, it's very similar to setting. First thing we're gonna do is make sure that you can serve the ball a good serve. And when I say good serve, I mean low, fast, flat, deep, all that kind of stuff. And if you're not someone that we can control, hey, we want to put it in this seam at this speed, we're not going to call spots for you. We're going to put you dead in 6, and I'm going to let you well on the ball, hit it hard, but hit it low, deep, and fast to make sure that it goes in the court as much as possible. But giving you a spot at that point makes little to no sense. So first operation is make a good serve, and that doesn't mean necessarily, yes, a good serve is usually in, but I mean go through the techniques of what you know to be a good serve and make sure that that's your first priority. Second thing is make a good serve to the right spot. If you are at a point where you can make that serve 95% of the time, if you're just trying to put it in, we need to now be able to control where we're putting that ball. And the last order of operation would be make a good deceptive serve to the right spot. And that would mean, hey, I want to serve it here. I want to serve it in this is the type of serve it needs to be. I'm going to serve it here, but I'm not going to show that it's going there. I'm going to look like I'm going to serve it X, Y, Z. Which, again, I don't want to play too much of that game. I don't think we need to at this level to be successful. One hand versus two hand toss. We've gone over some of this. The one-handed toss, make sure that your hitting arm starts back and high. Okay, one of the mistakes we have is it's starting low. Your tossing hand starts high. We have an issue where most people think the tossing hand starts low. Whether you have a one-handed toss or a two-handed toss, you need to make sure that your tossing hand actually starts higher so that you have vision on the court to work with, and it's less of a toss to work with. Your tosses by your non-dominant hand across your body to in front of your right shoulder. So you really want to be tossing the ball in a direction that looks like that so that it finishes here and you can contact here. Again, holding it high in front of your body is probably the biggest mistake that I see with most people do. They always start low, and there's more variable to that. The two-handed toss, when I teach two-handed toss, I straighten out my right arm, I bring my left arm to my right arm and toss from there so that it's always in front of my right shoulder every time. But I will keep the ball high so that I have vision and it's less movement. It's simpler. I pull the arms back quickly. This is the disadvantage of the two-handed toss. So it's right here, toss back, release. It's that fast. So there's no real time for you to not get your arm all the way back, and you really need to make sure you're not waiting for this ball to come down. So it has to be hit at its peak, but you still have to get your arm all the way back to get the momentum that you want on that ball. You're tossing it again in front of your right shoulder like we talked about. So let's talk about some of the common mistakes people make. The angled approach, this just makes no sense. Why you would move your approach side to side as you serve the ball, unless you have 2 feet of room and club, there's really no logical reason in my opinion. So when we serve, if you're having trouble with this, you want to find a line, and if you're jump floating, you want to run with that line 100%. So find a line, serve down the line, and then all you have to do to change where you want the ball to go is change the angle. So if I'm in the middle of the court and I'm serving down the middle of the court, I'm going to serve straight in, okay? Move my whole body the whole time is going to go straight in towards that. If I want it serving from the middle and I want to serve to 1, I'm literally going to turn the angle of my body. They're going to know what's happening, and I'm going to go straight at 1. I'm not going to go to 6 and then try to turn my body that way. I'm going straight at them. The reason being, regardless of my angle, it's the same serve every single time. So I'm not trying to change something about my serve and still get the same result. I'm serving the exact same ball. I'm just essentially tricking my body and saying that's straight, when in reality it's an angle. Complexity. The more you move, the higher you toss the ball. Anytime you add a step into the process, it's going to add complexity, and that variable is going to, the more things you're trying to accomplish, the more chance there is for error. So when we teach initial float serving, we literally step up to the line, weight on the right foot, hands directly in front of us, left foot steps 6 inches, and contact. That's it. It's the simplest serve, and I guarantee you that's the serve that's going to go in the most, because there's no moving parts associated to it. It's very simple. And sometimes the analogy they utilize is things that have less complex parts often break less and are a lot easier to fix. You can look at that with luxury cars and regular cars, or whatever the case may be. No decision or vision. When you serve the ball, you must make a decision every time. Okay, this is where I'm going to try to, generally speaking, put the ball. Or, hey, I'm not going to try to put the ball anywhere. I'm just going to make sure that I get a solid contact on the ball, and we'll go from there. But you have to make a decision in what you're trying to accomplish. Don't try to accomplish everything in the world. Accomplish one thing when you're trying to serve the ball, or you have that in your mindset so that your mind doesn't go freaking crazy about trying to balance. Okay, I need to be low, flat, deep, etc., and I need to be able to hit this. It's too much for your mind to comprehend. Just think, okay, that's where I want the ball. That's what I'm deciding right now. That's what I'm trying to accomplish. Vision is everything. You really do have to envision the process. I'm going to teach you guys a trick down the line of really how important vision actually is and what visualization actually does for you. Give you kind of an analogy on that. But vision is a huge part of it. And if you're not doing it, you're making yourself worse. It's that simple. If you can identify mentally, okay, that's where the ball's going, this is what it's going to look like, this is how the passer's going to move, and see that in your mind, it'll give you a huge advantage. Inconsistent toss. If you want to serve, this is the one thing you have to fix. It is by far and away the biggest killer of all servers. I would literally go in your backyard and toss the ball 1,000 times a night and say, okay, that was a good toss, that was a bad toss, what did I feel, etc. That's the only way to do it, is to toss it over and over and over again. Get simple, consistent tosses right in front of your shoulder to make sure you're hitting in your power zone every single time. But if you're having issues with your serve not going in, I would say that 90% of the time is because your toss isn't where it needs to be. Low arm. Whenever you start low, your arm has to come up and through, and that takes some power away. Some people start with their, your elbow should never be lower than your shoulder. It should always be higher than your shoulder by about 30 degrees. Your wrist break. We talk about this a lot. You can't. It's one motion. It's one particular piece. So when we look at serving, your middle finger and all your fingers should be one motion. Obviously spread out a little bit, not together. But they should be down to your elbow. It should be one motion. I shouldn't be able to push against this and break that process. So when I go to contact the ball, my arm comes straight back and comes straight forward. But at no point does my wrist break in that process. So we want to really lock our wrist so it's back, locked, contact. And that's what's going to give us that flat serve. And these are kind of the things that I really see that are consistent throughout all of our serves, that need to be consistent. One is the high elbow arm. A lot of these are going to be opposite, obviously, of these. Keeping it simple and repeatable is the key. When you have something that's simple, you can easily repeat it. So if you've ever tried to learn something or learn a new language or whatever the case is, the simpler you keep it, the easier your body and mind can repeat that process quicker. So that's why we want it as simple as possible. So if you're going through your approach or your routine and you find that there's things in there that don't make any sense and aren't helping you, scrap them. Go to a simpler process. Contacting your power zone. You got to contact the ball here. There's no other option. You want to get the speed you want, you want to serve the ball 35, 37, 38 miles an hour, you got to hit it here. Which means if you're jump floating, you got to toss it 12 inches above your head as you jump, which is 12 inches above your reach when you're jumping, obviously. If you're standing float serve, you need to make sure the ball's tossed here. If you can get there with your arm back with a one-handed toss, and you can toss the ball every single time in your power zone, you're going to do very, very well. But more often than not, we see a lot of tossers toss the ball out here, and we reach out here. So it's here. If I reach here, 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 or anything around that range, I'm going to end up cutting the ball, and I'm not going to be able to use all 4 muscles it takes to be successful in hitting the ball at the speed that I want to. Routine. Routine calms nerves. So when you're playing good teams and they're yelling at you, or it's an important point in the game, routine is what gets your mind into, I've done this a million times. Okay, let's go. So you really do want to have a routine, and you want it to be very, very specific. And if you don't have one of the best ways to do it is you walk back to the line and you essentially just spin the ball until you find the air hole, put one finger on the air hole, and then get into your tossing mode so you're in the same mode every time. And that actually will control the float process of the ball too. The air hole is a little bit heavier than the rest of the ball. So if you put the air hole down, the ball will actually float down. If you put the air hole to the left, it's going to be weighted on the left, so the ball is going to actually travel that way a little bit. It's not a perfect science, but because it is a few ounces heavier than the rest of the ball, it actually does make sense to position that where you want it to float. So if you want the ball to drop, put it down. If you want the ball to stay up and go deep, put it up. It's not going to make that much of a difference, but it might enough just to really move that extra 2 to 3 inches that's necessary. Vision and decision, we talked about this. Make a decision and then visualize it. Literally before you go and serve the ball, in your mind serve the ball, see the ball going over the tape, and watch the passer pass the ball or not pass the ball, depending upon your optimism. And move straight. We talked about this. Don't get into the mode where you're zigzagging or taking a step out or whatever the case is. You should be 100% straight so that when you serve the ball, it should be exactly the same serve every single time. That way, if you want to serve to the corner, you just take the exact same serve and you turn your body and you're done. Serving is about doing small things well. So if you want to get really good at it, take the time to practice a flat contact. Take the time to practice your toss in the backyard, however many times a night until you get it right here every time. And if you can serve that ball 85, 87% of the time in, and you're serving 35, 37 miles an hour on a float serve, you're going to end up serving for every team that you play on. It's really that simple. Let me know if you have any questions, and that's it for this one. Thanks.